also have Neptune, which is also the beef. So what do we notice about Uranus and Neptune? On this scale, they're about the same size as well. I feel like something's missing. Do you guys notice something missing? Yeah. What do we notice that's missing? Pluto is missing. Why do you think it might be missing? Why might it be missing? Chris?
Because Pluto is not a planet, it's a rock.
So Pluto is now in that dwarf category, but the reason it's missing is because if we showed Pluto on this scale, it would actually be smaller than this.
I didn't even see it. Wow.
Not only are the sizes of celestial objects big, but so are the distances between them.
Don't worry, wipe that frown off your face. We've got an activity to help you learn about the distances in our solar system.
By using toilet paper.
Hi, I'm Miss Lamke, and we are going to be looking at the distances between our planets using a scale model. Today we're going to be using toilet paper to create that scale model. On this model, every inch represents 7,710,000 miles. So that means like from here to here, 7,710,000 miles, 7,710,000 miles, so on and so forth, right? So now we're starting to think about how far away these planets are from the sun. Talk amongst your groups really quickly. Where do you think every other planet is in that distance? Go.
Earth, Mars. I feel like it's more. Sometimes it's hard to show up on paper.
Okay, now you guys are starting to think about that scale, right? Because that scale is 7,710,000 miles. So initially you guys are probably like, oh, it's maybe 100,000 miles away. But now that scale is getting bigger and bigger. So when we go out there, you and your group mates are going to get a piece of tape. And I'm gonna give you all a marker as well. What you are going to do is you're gonna think how far away is Pluto with our door being the sun, okay? From then, you all are going to mark the other 8 planets in our solar system, starting with Mercury, okay? So if you put Pluto really, really far away, you gotta think about, well, where are all those other planets going to line up? I want you and your group to kind of figure out where do you think Pluto is going to be. You guys go together. I'm going to give each team a roll of toilet paper. The first square is going to be the sun, and you're gonna start it right here on this black line, okay? As you keep going down, you're gonna figure out, okay, where's Mercury? Then you're gonna stop and you're gonna draw Mercury and label it. I'm going to give you a key to help you out. See if your predictions were a little off or pretty close. There you go. As you draw your planets, markers are the easiest to use, but be careful that you don't rip one. See what I did there? Note that the planet drawings are not to scale. On this scale, the planets would be very, very small, too small for us to draw. Teachers, you can adapt this activity to include math by only giving students the distances to the planets. Then have them calculate the number of squares of toilet paper based on the distance to Mercury being 1 square. Earth is 2.5. Mars is 3. Then you get all the way up to Jupiter and it's 12 squares out. Quietly and carefully come back into the room, back to your spot, and then we're gonna discuss some things. How was your prediction different or similar to what you actually got? Alice, what did your group find?
It was very far off.
Very far off. Is there anything that you know that is in our solar system that was missing from your model? Cheyenne? The moons, right? We know that not just Earth has moons, but a whole bunch of other planets have moons, right? One last thing I want to leave you guys with. How would our model change if we maybe did this with another galaxy? Would we need a lot more toilet paper or the same amount? Wes?
We're gonna need a lot more.
That's a lot of toilet paper.
Let's head out beyond our solar system.
Voyager 1, which took these images, was launched in 1977. It is the farthest human-made object away from Earth. Right now, it is almost 15 billion miles away. That's a long way, but we're going to explore much larger distances.
To give you an idea of the scale of these things, here's an image of NGC 2336. It is the quintessential galaxy photo taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. We've added a banana for scale. Just kidding. This galaxy is huge. It is 200,000 light years across and is located approximately 100 million light years away from Earth. At this distance, it's hard to see individual stars, much less a banana.
Beyond our solar system, if we want to measure things, we don't measure in miles, but in light years. That's the distance that light travels in 1 year, or 186,000 miles per second. That translates to 5.88 trillion miles per year. When we talk about 1 light year, we're talking about almost 6 trillion miles. And around these parts, we're talking about a lot of light years.
The closest star to us, besides our Sun, is Proxima Centauri, which is 4.2 light years away. Remember, that's over 24 trillion miles.
When you look into the night sky, you see stars of different brightnesses. That doesn't mean one is closer than the other. Some stars are huge, others are smaller, and different stars are different brightnesses. Take a pretty familiar constellation, Orion.
Here you see the constellation as it's seen from Earth. But remember, space is three-dimensional. The star on the left of Orion's belt is about 800 light years away. The star in the middle of the belt is about 1,300 light years away. And the star at the right side of the belt is about 900 light years away. Yet from Earth, they all appear to have the same brightness.
Some of the stars in the universe are amazingly large as well. The biggest star in the universe that we know of is 1,700 times larger than the radius of the Sun. 5 billion of our suns could fit inside it. We're going to need a bigger bowl, bigger fish bowl.
We've given you a way to compare the sizes of the planets.
And we've given you a way to create a scale model of the distance between the planets.
What if we took those two and combined them into one scale model?
Remember, we use scale models to help us understand really large numbers, and the sizes and the distances are so massive that it's pretty hard to put them together.
But fret not. There are scale models of the solar system all around the country.
There are plenty of creative scale models to be found across the United States and around the world. Doing a simple online search can point you in the right direction.
Want to tour the solar system in a day? Silas Education is building a scale model of the solar system in Washington State. It starts with the solar arches, a 40-foot sculpture of the sun designed to cast shadows which tell the story of the predictable path of the sun over the course of a year, and will have markers for each of the planets.
If you're looking for some unusual models, there's the Flag Solar System, where each flag represents a planet at Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia. There's the Distance to Scale model made of fiberglass planets on light poles in Traverse City, Michigan. There are plenty of walkable models. In St. Louis, there's the Del Mar Loop Planet Walk. You can find the sun station right outside the Moonrise Hotel. Check off each planet signpost until you find Neptune, located about a half a mile from the sun.
There are several Voyage solar systems. These walkable models feature scaled mock-ups of the sun and planets, and are about 1 to 10 billionth scale. They can be found in Kansas City, Missouri, Space Center Houston, and Corpus Christi, Texas, and will be returning to the National Mall in Washington, D.C.
But if you don't have the time or energy to walk, there's the Solar System Lawn model at the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, California. In this model, the planet's orbits are properly scaled around the sun. Each foot in this model is roughly equal to 20 million miles in our solar system. Do a search. Can you find a model in your hometown? We've looked at scale models. We've looked at the size of our planet, the distance between the Earth and the Moon, the size of the planets in our solar system, and the distance between them.
We've also looked at sizes outside our solar system. Where can you find or make your own scale models?
Map your neighborhood. Walk around your neighborhood and make a map. Think about what scale you'll use.
Build a scale model. You can make one yourself, or you can buy one. Notice the scale.
Think about how scale models are used in real life. The Navy uses a scale model to move planes around on an aircraft carrier called a Ouija board.
A lot of museums use scale models called dioramas, which allow them to represent scenes with three-dimensional figures. The Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History did some with dinosaurs.
And there is an entire museum in Gettysburg of dioramas of famous Civil War battles. The interesting thing about this museum is that all the soldiers are cats.
The cats are not to scale, but boy are they cute. Do you have a scale model at your house or in your classroom? Have you found one at a museum? We'd love to know about it down in the comments section.
And if you like this episode of STEM in 30, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and subscribe to the National Air and Space Museum's YouTube channel.
And teachers, be sure to check out the Teacher Tips document with resources on how to use this episode in your classroom.
Thanks for watching. Scale is the ratio between the size of a given original object and a new object, which is a representation, but of a different size. But what if you wanted to calculate?
I didn't like mine anyway.
Okay. Would you stop it? Leave them alone. Stop. Yes.
It's 8 o'clock and Beth has crossed over the bridge to...
Stop touching things. Just stop it. Keep your hands to yourself. Now I can't remember what I'm supposed to say.
Size of the Earth.
To show how big the Earth is in comparison to the sun.
Why do you get to touch them?
Because someone is more responsible than how. No, we can just use this. If I spread my arms out like this is the size of the sun, which means the size of the Earth would be about.
One more time. One more time.
Ow.
I'm built different. And our solar system. Just go. Get on out. Leave. Please. Yeah.
Edited
About a minute.
and that was like really crucial or totally brand new as we skim this. Okay.
This is the lightest audience we've had in months.
We're not sure yet, John. We'll tell you at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, everyone just on Zoom. Wayne, make a resident comment.
You guys all set?
Yes.
Okay, stand by. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. Welcome to the Longmeadow Select Board meeting on October 7th, 2024. This is Select Board Chair Vineet Hemavati. I will be confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dan Zorko?
Here.
Andrew Lamb?
Here.
Mark Gold?
Here.
Josh Levine?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons?
Here.
Mike Barbieri?
Here.
This open meeting of the Longmeadow Select Board is convened in person and via Zoom webinar as posted on the agenda and town's website, identifying how the public may join. There is no chat or Q&A function. All of the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadowma.gov. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. The meeting will feature resident comment. For residents attending the meeting in person, please raise your hand when we get to the comment section of the meeting and I will call on you to approach the microphone. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute, unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. If anyone in attendance is recording this meeting, please announce yourself now. All right, we will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll begin with Select Board announcements. The Fall Special Town Meeting is set for Tuesday, November 12th at 7 p.m. at the Longmeadow High School Gymnasium. Please visit longmeadowma.gov/town meeting for additional information and resources ahead of the Fall Special Town Meeting. Longmeadow's Fall 2024 leaf program has been announced. Longmeadow residents will have 3 options for leaf disposal. 1, you can use the town pay-as-you-throw curbside leaf collection program. 2, you can hire a private contractor for leaf removal. Or 3, you can purchase a recycling center sticker and transport leaves directly to the Meadows Leaf composting site on West Road. Curbside collection of the town pay-as-you-throw leaf bags, which are available now at Big Y for purchase, will be held on 3 Saturdays between November 2nd and December 14th, exact dates to be determined. The drop-off area in the Meadows off of West Road will open for the season on Saturday, October 26th, and will remain open to residents and contractors through Sunday, December 8th, weather permitting. For additional information about the LEAF program, please visit longmeadowma.gov/LEAF program. Local Cultural Council grant applications are now available. The deadline to submit an application is October 16th. To learn more about the process through the Massachusetts Cultural Council and to complete an online application, please visit longmeadowma.gov/civic alerts. The Community Preservation Committee, via the town clerk's office, will accept project proposals through November 12th for possible consideration and vote at the 2025 annual town meeting. For additional information about the CPC process and to fill out an application, please visit longmeadowma.gov/civic alerts. Come meet members of FiberSpring and learn more about the chance to bring high-speed, reliable, town-owned fiber internet to Longmeadow. An event will be held on Wednesday, October 9th at the Longmeadow Adult Center at 6 p.m. Reminder, the general election is set for Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Longmeadow Community House. Early voting will take place from October 19th through November 1st. For the full early voting schedule and additional information, please visit longmeadowma.gov/elections. All right, and do we have anyone on Zoom for resident comment?
No one has their hand raised.
No? Okay. All right. And we will move forward then with interviews, appointments. So, Lynn, I think, do you want to start off on this one? The first item is confirmation of our fire chief appointment.
Thank you. Yes, so in your packet, you received a memo and a resume. And tonight, I am very pleased to present John Rigney for appointment to the position of fire chief. This will fill the upcoming vacancy that will be created with the retirement of Chief Dearborn in November of 2024. I do have Mr. Rigney here tonight, and he'll be available to answer any questions that you have. Mr. Rigney has worked for the town of Longmeadow since 1998, first serving as firefighter. In his 26 years with the town, Mr. Rigney has held various positions within the Longmeadow Fire Department, including acting captain, EMS coordinator, department training officer, and captain. In 2023, Mr. Rigney was promoted to deputy chief, which includes the duties of operations chief and deputy emergency manager. Prior to joining the town of Longmeadow, Mr. Rigney worked for St. Michael's Fire and Rescue in Colchester, Vermont from 1994 to 1998. Deputy Chief Rigney holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from St. Michael's College. Through his years in the fire service, Deputy Chief Rigney has completed numerous trainings and courses on topics including emergency response to terrorism, rail safety for first responders, photovoltaics for the fire service, and advanced incident command system. Currently, Deputy Chief Rigney is enrolled in a 14-week Chief Fire Officer Management Program run by UMass. Deputy Chief Rigney enrolled in this course on his own initiative. At the completion of the course, he will be certified as a Massachusetts Chief Fire Officer, the highest certification in Massachusetts. Deputy Chief Rigney has the experience, skills, temperament, and commitment to lead the Longmeadow Fire Department. I'm pleased and honored to submit his appointment as our next fire chief to the Select Board for confirmation in accordance with Longmeadow Charter Article 5-2B.
Great, thank you. So I guess I'll begin. I was very pleased to hear about this appointment, and I feel very lucky that the town has the opportunity to hire you, Mr. Rigney, as our next chief. I also want to take this opportunity, too, to thank Mr. Dearborn, Chief Dearborn, for your years of service. I think you have the respect of everyone in town, respect of everyone in town government, and you've done such a great job in so many different ways in leading our fire department, and we are really grateful for your years of service. Deputy Chief Rigney, I think that one of the most important things in this position is that we are selecting someone that is a person of integrity, that has not only the trust of the department, but also of the town. And I can say that I feel that that is true here. And some of the things that, I think Lynn brought up, the way that you've taken initiative to get certifications, the different kinds of things that you've done throughout your career shows that you have a commitment to our town, and you also have a commitment to doing this job well. And so I am, thankful that you have put yourself up for this position, and I feel lucky that the town has this opportunity to appoint you. Anyone else? Josh.
When Chief Dearborn, when we heard he was retiring, this is what I hoped would happen. So I'm glad the process has brought us about with you. So you have a lot of respect among the crew and the town, and so I think we're doing the right thing here.
I truly appreciate it. It's truly been an honor for me the last 26 years to serve this community, and as I talked, to Lynn and the assessment, through the assessment, I'm humbled. I really am humbled. I truly didn't, when I started this career, didn't see myself. I saw myself as a captain and leading a small group. I never saw myself leading the department, and I couldn't be happier, more excited, and honored that the people that I serve with speak so highly of me and are excited for me to run the organization. So.
Thank you. Dan.
Thanks. First I just want to say thank you to Chief Dearborn for all your many years of service to the town of Longmeadow. You've done a great job, and wish you the best in retirement. I know you have a party a couple months away, which should be fun, but also for Mr. Rigney as well. I've gotten the ability to meet you and talk to you over the past 2.5 years that I've been on the board, and just like what Denise said, as well as Josh, they said it very well. I've talked to several people in town, and some of the folks on the fire department themselves, and everyone has very positive things to say about you, and your record speaks for itself. But I think you are the type of person that not only are you very committed to Longmeadow and the fire department itself, but also I think you have a fun time, doing what you love as well, and it speaks volumes to what people say about you and what you've done for the community. So I couldn't think of a better person to be, in your seat right now tonight and moving forward. So you certainly have big shoes to fill with Chief Dearborn departure, but I'm confident you'll do a great job and continue to serve the community well. So
thank you. And they are big shoes to fill, and luckily I have a couple more months to be able to pull as much information as I can from him, and I hope he realizes that his phone will ring a little bit when I need some help. But I'm not afraid to say that, hey, I need help with this, and reach out to everybody in the community, and not only my department but other department heads, and select board and town manager's office and everything, that, the one thing I can say about this community and working in this community is that the relationships among departments are unmatched compared to many others. I have many friends across different communities all throughout New England, and I hear, well, this department doesn't get along with this department, and we get along so well that it makes things go so smoothly that I'm excited to be, kind of more involved with that. So, thank you.
Anything else? Mark?
Yeah, Deputy Chief, I'm going to add my praise and endorsement of this appointment. I think it's the right thing to do. My only comment is that I'm going to give you put a little bit of a pressure on you, and that is that I've had the luxury of being here through, you'll be the third fire chief, and Chief Madison or Chief Dearborn, and then you, and each time things have gotten more complicated, they've gotten a little tougher, but they've also gotten a lot better.
Right.
And so, the pressure's on you to make that equivalent step up for the next round as the world changes and the climate changes and
Right.
the community changes. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what you have and how you're going to put your stamp on the department.
Well, thank you. I'm a tireless worker, as I'm sure that you've seen throughout my resume and my time here in town, and I'm excited for that challenge, and I hope you hold me to it. That I'm up for the challenge. I really am. So.
I would only echo everything that's already said. Chief Dearborn, appreciated knowing you over these years, and thank you for your service to the town. Deputy Chief, enjoyed meeting you, and thank you for the very explanatory conversations we've had and educated me about what your fire department's been trying to do and improve itself. So thank you for your service, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the town manager to appoint Deputy Chief John Rigdon to be the next chief of the Long Meadow Fire Department.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our board and committee appointments. So we have a memo attached with the appointments that we have to vote on today. And I will entertain motions on these.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, I guess we're going to do this all, we're going to try to do this all in one motion. So I'm going to make a motion to appoint Alexander Aiken and Iris Smolowitz to 3-year terms expiring 6/20/27 to the Capital Planning Committee, to appoint Richard McCullough to a...
6/30/27.
Did I, we're at
6/20.
Oh, I'm sorry, 6/30/27, thank you. To appoint Richard McCullough to a 3-year term expiring 6/30/25 of the Conservation Commission, and to appoint Margaret Cohn, Brett Luzek, and Gregory Morrison to 3-year terms for the Historic Commission expiring 6/30/27, and finally to appoint William Welsh to the 3-year term expiring 6/30/27 for the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion?
I just had one, I get, so we're going to be voting across, just like one vote? And
Well, I think we'd said we wanted to try to do it as one vote, didn't we?
Yeah, just the only, after going through and looking at all the applicants and just looking at folks on the various committees, so I'm the liaison for Parks and Rec, and I just personally feel that we haven't had representation of a woman serving on this committee for years. So, and also the fact that Mr. Welch, who's certainly more than qualified to serve on Parks and Rec Commission, I think he also has a background from reading his resume that would suit him well on the audit committee. So I was hoping that we would appoint Alexandra Strom to the Parks and Rec Commission to create, like I said, to have representation of a woman on this board. Especially we have many young women and girls who are participating in athletes or athletics and sports across town. I just think it'd be a good representation to have a woman on this committee and allow Mr. Welch to serve on the audit committee. But again, like I said, Mr. Welch has done great things, especially for the football program as well, in town athletics. But I just think in this situation, if we have the opportunity to put a woman on a committee where we don't have a woman serving who represents several young women and girls in athletics, I think that's a good thing. So I would, yeah, so that's my thought.
Anyone else? Josh?
Yeah, Dan, I always appreciate your thoughts on things like this. If all things being equal, I think that representation certainly matters, and I think that is a worthy thing to think of. I'm voting for Mr. Welch based on his work on the fields that were, because we have possibly a decision coming up on, many decisions coming up on how to use fields, and I know that he was the driving force behind getting the study done on whether we should have turf or grass, and so that's why I'm voting for him. Nothing against Ms. Strom. I just think at this point in time, I think he can do a lot of good on the committee when we have possibly some really big decisions to make on how our fields are allocated and how they're going to be used.
I also appreciate what you said, Dan. It's definitely a good consideration. I have served with Mr. Welch on the Finance Committee. I always did find him to be very well prepared, very passionate, and very involved as a community volunteer. So I just wanted to say that from my own experience as well. I'm sure they're both very good candidates.
Yeah, and I will just add, I also appreciate your comments, Dan, and I think that this really has nothing to do, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with Mr. Welch, because I think he is very qualified for this. I think he'd be great on the Parks and Rec Commission. I think the other consideration is trying to give opportunities for people that haven't previously served in town government, to give them a chance and open a door and let them serve, especially when Mr. Welch has expressed interest in serving on a different committee as well. But I also appreciate what Josh said about the specific expertise he would bring to this commission. So, if we do, if we were to vote for Ms. Strom, I would hope that Mr. Welch applies and interviews for the audit committee. If we do go with Mr. Welch, then I hope that Ms. Strom would find another opportunity to be involved in our government, because I think one DEI issue that we have kind of identified that I think we're going to start looking at is the overrepresentation of certain voices in our town government. And I think the way that we rectify that is by, finding ways to bring more people in to the process and giving people more of an opportunity to serve. So I want to just add those thoughts as well. Mark?
Would you prefer that we break this motion into 4 separate motions then?
Or we could
just
do the first 3 committees and then do the last one.
Whatever,
Yeah, maybe that might be better, because the other ones are all
Do you want to just
open.
amend the motion to include the first 3 and not include the Parks and Recreation Commission vote? I can mark that down right here.
I guess I can amend the motion to do that. I was going to withdraw it and make a new motion, but I'll amend the motion to be just Capital Planning, Conservation, and Historical Commission.
And then, is that a misprint for Conservation Commission? The vacant 3-year term expires 2027, right? Here it says 6/30/2025.
It does expire in 2025.
Oh, okay, so
It's
those
a
are.
vacant position that's expiring in 2025.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha,
it's a
okay.
3-year term, but it was starting in 2022.
Okay, gotcha, cool, thank you. All right, so Mark
Second
has.
that motion.
Second, any further discussion? No? All right, all those in favor? All right. So now we have the Parks and Rec Commission opening left. And
So is there more discussion? I just want to be just clear that I have nothing against Mr. Welch. I think he's done a great job. What Josh has said as well, especially for the fields and other programs. I'm not voting against Mr. Welch. I guess technically I am, but it's just simply, like Josh said, I mean, he's done a great job. It has nothing to do, no ill will towards Mr. Welch. I just feel that we need to have more representation of women serving on boards, especially when we have young women and young girls playing sports, and I just think this is an opportunity that we should be selecting a woman, but I'm not so sure I have the votes, but.
Just a quick correction.
Go ahead, Mark.
Dan, I'm not up to date with the current Parks and Recreation Commission, and I assume that you, because you are, you know, but just as a point, the chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission for many, many years had been female, so
Right.
it's not like we've never had any representation.
No, I understand.
And Josh, were you gonna say something?
Well, Dan, mark it on the calendar, you convinced me. I think you're right, because I think Bill will still participate. So I think that you're making a good point, and, yeah, I'm with you.
All right, anything else? Well, I could entertain a motion.
No.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint Alexandra Strom to the vacant 3-year term expiring 6/30/27 to the Parks and Rec Commission.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Great, and I would say, I think we all just spoke very highly of Mr. Welch, and I know he's done a great job on the Finance Committee, and I hope that soon we will be interviewing him for a position on the Audit Committee. Great. Next, we have Select Board comments. I don't have a comment I can think of right now, but anyone else have a comment? Mark?
Yeah, later on the agenda, there's a discussion about the warrant, and the warrant has a couple of bylaws that are being proposed, and my comment has to do with bylaws, and I guess what I'm asking for is that the Select Board take another look at the current bylaws, how we and if we choose to enforce them. And I know we've had a lot of discussions recently with Josh with the overnight parking of commercial vehicles, but I'm more concerned about the political signs in this nature on tree belts on town property, overnight parking, housing setbacks and bushes and stuff like that. And I just think that before we enact or ask the town to enact more bylaws, that we ought to take a look at whether we're enacting bylaws that we have the wherewithal, the ability, and the intent to enforce, because I'm not sure we have the wherewithal, the intent, and the ability to enforce the laws we have. And so I'm making this a formal request to put on an agenda of an upcoming meeting, hopefully before the town meeting, but I know we have full agendas, for us to talk about bylaw enforcement and how we deal with that. And again, the areas that concern me are signs, overnight parking, street parking, and setbacks, because any of us could drive around town right now and pick up dozens of those violations. Forget about the commercial vehicles, which is a whole other ballgame, but at least I think we're looking at that. So that's my comment for the Select Board.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Andrew?
I just want to congratulate the Friends of Storrs Library for their incredible book sale last weekend. They raised an astonishing over $16,000, which is amazing when you realize each book was only $2 to $3 or $4. So even better, they found a new home, a cherished home for thousands of books that are basically going to be read by new people. So it's a great success for them.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Josh?
Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, on Friday, I attended the Mass Municipal Association regional event. It was held in Ludlow at Ludlow Mills. Actually, our former Select Board member, Mark Strange, hosted the event. He's now the town administrator in Ludlow. So just want to say thank you to Mark for hosting. And it was pretty interesting just to kind of hear some of the upcoming legislation in the pipeline. But right now, it's of course too early. The legislators were talking about it's way too early to talk about or get an understanding of what the numbers are going to look like later in the year in terms of if they're tracking or not. But there was the municipal, I printed the Municipal Empowerment Act. I'm sure Lynn's familiar with this, but A couple of the things I thought were pretty interesting, just giving some additional potential flexibility to the towns where we can potentially raise money, whether it's with excise taxes or some other avenues, as well as the Future Tech Act of 2024. So this, I thought, would be a good opportunity. Vinny, you probably have already heard of this with your task force with municipal fiber, but I think over the next 5 years, the Commonwealth is going to be putting $30 million towards grant opportunities. So I know we're going to talk a little bit later about a great grant that the town of Longmeadow was able to receive because of our town manager, as well as Corinne, for their work. But just something for us to keep in mind as we're having these conversations. And then finally, I also wanted to give a shout out to Lynn, because every time I'm at these events, everyone's like, you have the best town manager. And I think we all here can agree that that's the case. And we're just fortunate to have Lynn and her staff, working to secure these grants that we talked about. So thank you, Lynn. And I think that was all that I could think of right now, but thank you.
Great. Josh? Here. Good job.
She's probably not watching, but it's my daughter's 11th birthday, so happy birthday, Tilly.
We gonna sing?
Make me look bad. It's my wife's birthday today.
I wanted to get it before you.
All right. Next up is the town manager's report.
Thank
Go ahead,
you.
Lynn.
Yeah, so I have a scholarship announcement. The Nancy Gelkowski Scholarship Award was presented to Ian Coddington, our finance director. He was one of 4 who received this in the state. This is a Mass Municipal Association scholarship, and he's going to participate in a 5-week-long MMA Suffolk University Municipal Finance Management course. It's held on Fridays, and it provides a thorough examination of municipal finance in Massachusetts. Nancy Gelkowski had a 35-year career in municipal management and had a passion for mentoring young managers and being of service to her peers. She passed away in 2013, and the Management Association colleagues established a fund to honor her memory and continue her legacy. So I'm happy that Ian applied and was selected for that grant, or that scholarship. We have a donation that I am formally acknowledging that we're accepting. The select board policies require this, but I also do think it's important that we call this out. I know it was in correspondence several meetings ago, but I do want to make sure that the public is fully aware of this, and the select board, and we give thanks to the family who made the donation. So in August, I was contacted by Lynn Scott regarding donating a painting of the community house, which was owned by Dr. Stanley Teal. As the letter explained in that September 3rd select board correspondence, Dr. Teal and his wife Shirley and their 3 sons lived in Longmeadow from 1957 to 1984. Dr. Teal was a renowned and well-respected cardiologist in Springfield. The painting, there's supposed to be an image here in my report, but there's not, depicts a view down Longmeadow Street showing the community house and First Church, and it's a view that we all recognize. A space in the community house was identified to display the artwork, and again, according to the policy, we need to formally accept this gift, which has been done by me notifying the select board here. And I thank Lynn Scott and the Teal family for this donation. The picture is already hung up in the community house, so definitely stop by and see it, especially if you're here to vote on election day. I'm happy to show you where it is, but it's prominently displayed in the main hallway. And another gift announcement, great for Greenwood Playground. The town has been offered a gift of a new swing to complement the previously donated playground equipment named Molly's Gift, which was dedicated many years ago by Elizabeth McAvoy upon the death of her daughter. In 1996, the Longmeadow Rotary Club organized the cost of the playground equipment in memory of Molly, who had died that same year. Recently, the DPW spent time addressing areas of the playground that needed more substantial maintenance. The new playground equipment is a swing from Compan, a world-renowned playground equipment company. The gift includes the rope nest and freight and a custom swing frame, and the total amount is $5,462.13. And again, according to Select Board Town Manager policy, the Select Board's to be notified prior to accepting the gift. which is what I'm doing here tonight. Thank you to Elizabeth Picosa McAvoy for your continued efforts to support the playground and Molly's Gift. And as many of you know, a grand opening celebration, they've started at the elementary school playgrounds. We've held one at Blueberry Hill, and the one that was scheduled for Center School had to be postponed due to weather. It is now scheduled for tomorrow, October 8th at 3 o'clock. Installation of the Wolf Swamp Elementary Playground has finished, and a grand opening celebration is still in the works. Attached to this memo is a update from the town engineer regarding the Longmeadow Street water and sewer line replacement. And then there's additional information from Fuss and O'Neill, our design engineers on this project. Last week, Fuss and O'Neill, DPW, Ludlow Construction, Longmeadow Police and Fire met regarding the upcoming work that's going to be in the roadways. This includes the intersections of Longmeadow Street at Converse, Converse Street at Laurel, and Forest Glen at Longmeadow Street. Ludlow Construction has completed a majority of the off-roadway water line and sewer line replacement and is now at the point where the work will start taking place in the roadway. As had previously been mentioned, the work in these high-traffic intersections needs to be completed at night, and I do believe they are scheduled to start that work, if not later this week. I think it looks like October 14th, which is next week. So that will definitely have an impact, and it's definitely different than what's been done in the past, but given the nature of the amount of traffic in these areas, this is necessary. The Longmeadow Street at Converse is the first one they'll be starting with, and then the other two intersections will likely be done in the springtime. And then lastly, on my update, as many know, we've been working on renovating the Greenwood Center and to turn it into a consolidated municipal office space for town hall and community house offices. We are moving quite along in that process, and we will be closing to the public on October 17th and 18th. So that's town hall and community house will be closed to the public next Thursday and Friday to allow staff to move to the new office space. We will then reopen on Monday, October 21st at Greenwood Center. This does not include the town clerk's office. They will stay at town hall until after the election, so they will not move until sometime middle of December, once everything has settled down from the presidential election. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Mark?
And I have a couple of questions. The acceptance of the painting, is there a plaque that's going with that, or will it be something so people will recognize that it was a gift of this family and who did it? Generally, we try to.
Yeah, we can do that. We have not planned for that yet, but we can do something.
I think it would be a nice thing to do, so people can see where it came from and how it came up from. The other question I have is about the Molly's Playground at Greenwood. You know, with the new grant we now have for Bliss and the upgrade of the elementary schools, it's pretty clear that this playground, and I believe it's a very active playground from what I've seen because it's near the pool, you know, is now the outlier in town for what's on the ground, things like that. Is there any planned possibility, vision for potentially upgrading certainly the surface at Greenwood Park, at the Molly's Park?
There's no design yet, but certainly we all have the same understanding you do, that 4 of our 5 playgrounds will have been updated. But again, we don't have a design in place yet. We don't have an identified funding source for that either. So it's likely, several years out.
I think it ought to just be on somebody's list for something, even though it's several years out. I think, like I said, because I think of the proximity of the pool, it's pretty well used, particularly when the pool's open.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Josh?
I just had a question on the night work, and maybe Sean will have a better answer for us. So this is, if I'm reading this correctly, it's just 1 week, five nights, and each crossing should be done at about that time?
5 nights for each area,
Right.
not 5 nights total.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
It might be a little longer for Forest Glen Crossing.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be a major service. We'll be back before you guys next spring before that happens.
Okay, and so that's good, that's not that long, but I have not been around for the work. I don't drive that way normally, and I don't live there. how loud are we expecting it to be overnight? Is this going to, can people still stay there? Is it going to ruin people's days or nights, I guess?
It's going to be loud.
Yeah.
There's going to be jackhammers, there's going to be saws, there's going to be heavy equipment, there's going to be backup alarms, and there's going to be lights. So this is a major impact to the people living there, and they should be made aware.
Are we making them aware?
It's after tonight, yes. Along with the surrounding towns, there's going to be an impact for traffic. Portions of Converse Street will be closed. So we're letting everyone know, and we're getting the paper and social media.
The people who are right on the route, are you knocking on their doors?
We're going to be posting on their doors and letting them know. Yep. We didn't know the exact timing of the night work until about a week ago, and didn't have a traffic plan until a couple days ago. So this is kind of a rush to let everyone know. But we did talk about it a year ago that it would be likely night work.
I remember when we first talked about it.
But it's going to be loud for those neighbors for at least a week, unfortunately.
Could be worse.
Mark, just to follow up, Sean, one of the biggest problems I see is when something happens on Route 91 and everybody's, we've all seen that a few times. So we notify the neighbors, but what are we doing about notifying people who might be diverting traffic off of 91 to try to come up Route 5 with that?
Sure.
Those intersections.
So the police chief is reaching out to all the emergency responders, all the surrounding communities, everyone we can think of notifying. We are, including the tractor trailer trucks coming out of East Longmeadow. So we're going to do what we can to make sure everyone knows. But to your point, the very reason we're doing the night work is to make sure there's not more of an issue on 91, which we would definitely have if we did it during the day. It would be gridlock, and I don't see it going well. We'd likely get the project shut down if we tried during the day. So this is an unfortunate kind of a nuisance, but it's important. So,
Anyone else? Okay. Yes, thank you, Sean. And thank you, Len. All right. Moving on to old business, we've got a couple of draft meeting minutes to approve. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the minutes of the August 12th, 2024 Select Board meeting with some typos or errors in, spelling or whatever that I've already sent to Mike. If anybody wants to know them, they're minimal though.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Great, thank you.
And I'd like to make a motion that we approve the September 3rd, 2024 meeting minutes. And again, there's a couple of typos, but I also wanted to make note of, I believe that it would be important for us to add a sentence to the dangerous dog hearing. The hearing does not state anywhere that Mr. Cartello's dog attacked the other dog, resulting in its death, and I'd like to have that sentence included, and I sent that to Mike also. I think that frames the purpose of the dangerous dog hearing and our responses. I think it's important.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
So with those two changes, I'll move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, great. All right, so next we have our municipal aggregation discussion. We received a presentation at our last meeting, and we were asked to vote on a product suite. And Mike, I don't know if you want to pull it up, but I believe slides 9 and 10 have the two product suites that we were discussing and having to choose from. I don't know if anybody has thoughts that they want to start with. Josh?
You let Mark go first.
Right, thank you, Chuck. So, when municipal aggregation first came to my attention, I brought it to the town's attention. The intent of this was to offer something to save the town residents money. And it wasn't to be a social policy or change social policy. And I'd like to keep to that theory or that approach. And, as I've started down this road and moved into it, if it was up to me, I'd offer three options. One is the state state requirement of 62.4%, whatever, and call that our basic. And that the intent of that is to, to give the town residents a cost savings and give them what they wanted. And a second option would be to let the people who want to go 100% solar. I would have included a third one halfway in between. What was interesting was hearing the folks from talking about the proposal. They said not many people choose that in between, but I was, my thought was always, if we took something in between that was financially neutral to residents, people might say, look, as long as I don't have to pay anymore, I'll take this additional, social step of adding in additional renewable energy. And so, if it was up to me, I'd go to as a basic, the state requirement, something in between, and the optional, but lacking the optional 2 being 100%. But lacking that, if people want to go to 2, I think what we've got there is a basic of meet state minimum, and the optional of 100% is the way to do it.
So, Mark, I think what you're saying is doing product suite number 2, but just flipping Longmeadow Standard and Longmeadow Basic.
Correct.
So that Longmeadow Basic would be the default.
And there's
Correct.
still 3 options.
And there's still 3 options. Correct.
Yep.
That's what I would say. Thank you.
Josh?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this because I think when we first talked about this, I didn't want to necessarily force people into anything, but the more I thought about it, I think suite number 2, as is the way to go. Some people may choose to go up, some people can choose to go down, but I think if we're going to do this, I think we should try to, we have goals, we have a long-term plan, we have climate goals, and the state has goals, and I think we should do our part to move towards them while also allowing people to step back a little bit and only get savings if they're not as interested in working towards those goals, although this does meets the minimum for renewals at least. But I think that the fact that Suite 2, and people are getting a lot of education, that if they want to, right off the bat, they can step down and go down to that minimum, to the basic. I think this makes a lot of sense to me. And I do wish, it would be nice if there were more options, but given what we have to work with, I think this is the way to go.
Yeah, and I think slide 17 was what they offered in showing us the differences between these price-wise, that the standard option would be, in Belchertown at least, was 13.37, basic 12.9, so not a significant difference price-wise, but then a much more significant increase going over to the 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's hard to look at that and say, yeah, I know what that'll do for my bill, but it's all lower than what National Grid was doing for them.
Yeah, that's important to,
Yeah.
that's important to say.
And the fact that you can pop up and down whenever you want, I think if we give people a nudge, but right off the bat, give them the choice to go down or go up, to me, that's I think that's the way to go.
Anything else?
I felt similarly. I mean, I think I did the math on this, and it looked like the increase from basic to standard was about like 3%, so, which is very modest, and keeping in mind that everyone will basically be paying less than what they're doing now. And finally, people can just choose basic if they so choose. So I think I think Suite 2 is probably a good way to go.
Yeah, I will say that if I had not heard this presentation, what Mark said is what I would think would be the way to go. But what they offered in their experience, that most people stick with the standard and that the price differential isn't that significant where folks really feel like they move down to basic. For that reason, I think that Suite 2 is our best option.
And the 12th slide is the one that really got me, that if you use the basic service, 230 megawatt hours. If you go bump up one, it's 5,379. 230 megawatt hours. My house, and I've had panels for 5 years, I think I've done 60 megawatt hours. I mean, this is nothing for a whole town. So it's a laudable goal to do our part, I think, while still giving people the option.
Yeah, and right underneath it, the amount of carbon pollution you're avoiding, 180,000 versus 4 million. Okay. Anyone else have anything to add on this one?
I'll just say that, and Josh said it very well, I just think overall, Suite 2 is really, just gives us the most options, or it gives the homeowner and residents the most options to choose from, and I think flexibility is also important. So that's what I would support, but I also appreciate Mark bringing that up early on.
All right, well.
I'm just going to reiterate my comment about, is it whether the select board should be putting into place the social position for people in town rather than save money. That's all. That's the way I feel. I'm going to vote against the motion if that's the way it comes out.
Go ahead, Josh.
Right. When we have goals, we have people elected us, and people know that we just voted on a long-range term plan. They still have the option to go down, and everyone's saving money. I see what you're saying, Mark, and that was kind of my first thought, but I think we have an opportunity here, and if people don't like it, they have the option to go down, which I think is, and save a lot of money, which I think is, to me, the key. So we're doing our part. We have a plan, we have goals, and we have state laws that eventually this, it could go up, so we might as well take a step now. We need a motion.
And I think what Dan said too was a good point, that this suite offers more options. You get 3 options versus 2. And it's just giving folks more options. But yeah, Josh, I am looking for a motion.
I will move that we adopt Long Meadow Community Electricity Product Suite 2 in our aggregation plan.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? All right. Next, we have our November 12th draft fall special town meeting warrant review. So just a little bit before our meeting, a new draft warrant was attached. I think that in the actual link, it might be broken on the agenda.
I got it to work just now.
You got it?
I just did it off the agenda, yeah, so okay.
Okay, all right, never mind. Something wrong with my computer. So this is kind of the first time we're looking at the actual warrant, even though we've discussed these articles throughout our work over the past year. We're taking a look at what this looks like all together. We are going to do a review tonight, and then at our next meeting on October 21st, we're going to actually vote to actually adopt the warrant. So what I want to do tonight was kind of open this up for a general discussion. I think folks have had a chance to review it, to talk about maybe articles that they want to talk about, or any other kind of thoughts that they have on this, and also give Lynn a chance to direct our attention to articles if need be. But I thought that would be a good place for us to start today, and then at our next meeting we can kind of go through all of this article by article and really iron things out before we vote for them. Okay. All right. Anybody have any articles or anything that they? Yeah, John.
Yeah, there's a question on the first one. Is $695,000 what the appropriation would be for the study?
Yes.
And so this is a different program. This is also for MSBA, but it's the accelerated repair. So can you explain how that works?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge. We are in the running for an accelerated repair award for Center School roof. We will know pretty soon, but your warrant closes before potentially we'll know whether or not we get this, and we can't miss the opportunity to have this on the warrant. We feel pretty confident we'll receive the award, and similar to the middle school, we have to pay for the feasibility study. And then it opens us up to funding for repair of the roof. And it's a much more condensed process, and it's for projects that are not full renovation.
So I know that the roof would be many millions of dollars. Is there a similar reimbursement
Yes.
formula? Okay.
Yes.
And including for potentially some of that?
I believe so, yes. I still need to grab all the specifics, but
I
yes.
think the last are $8 million, is that right?
It sounds close, yeah.
So just to be clear, the application is already in.
Yes.
So this doesn't increase our odds of getting it because they know we committed to a feasibility study, but we know we have to do this regardless if we get it or if we don't, it's necessary.
Right, the reason this is on here now is because if we do get it, we have to prove funding for the feasibility study within 90 days. And we
I
don't
see.
have a town
Okay.
meeting
Gotcha.
other than November 12th, unless we called a special one.
But if we fail to get the grant, we'd also still eventually need this to fix the roof.
We would go about it a different way, and we would likely rescind this vote if we don't get the
Okay,
grant.
gotcha. Mark?
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
That's fair.
Is this vote going to have something in there that the expenditure of this money is contingent upon receiving the grant? I mean,
Yes,
that-
absolutely.
Okay.
It's a draft, so draft language, I still need final
Right,
language
but
from
that's what-
SBA. The needs an explanation, yes.
But somewhere, when people are voting on it, they'll understand that they're voting on something that won't be spent if there's no grant.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we'd already know by then, though, right?
Ideally, we'll know by November 12th.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, okay.
And Lynn, did you have any articles that you wanted us to?
I mean, number 2 here, I'm not going to go each single article, but number 2, we had previously had conversations about an amendment to the budget and how that's not something that maybe had been done in the past. And so this article is doing that. It's accounting for the increase in state aid and accounting for, if you recall, when you approved the budget, we had that meeting where we made all those changes so we could fund the feasibility study and literacy curriculum. At that point, we did not know the total cost, but we knew it would be about $490,000. And then the motion on the floor of town meeting was actually for $270,000, which was the funding of the literacy. So there's $225,000 in the budget that doesn't really have a home right now. And so this article addresses that as well. So one of the areas that we pulled money from was the OPEB liability. And so I have put a placeholder in here for that. But at some point between now and when you close the warrant, I'd like your feedback as to whether or not that's where you want it to go. There are other places it could go, but this is where we did take it from initially. But as you'll see, we also took it from capital, and Article 3 handles that. I don't have a brand-new update for you, but the year-to-date revenue for specifically excise tax is coming in higher than projected, and I believe we will be able to support the increase in the capital plan to fund the work that had been deferred to make room for the literacy curriculum. And so instead of needing to, what I guess I'm saying is you can do the OPEB in the budget, but you can also do, I believe we can fit capital in with the increase in receipts. But I'll know for certain by the time we meet next time. But this is how I have it structured right now.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
So this is the FY25 budget.
Correct.
We're modifying. And so when you talk about motor vehicle excise tax coming in above projected, that's the current year already is coming in?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. The only other question I have is, the Article 2, we're increasing the operating budget for the school.
Yes.
How did that come about?
So the increase in state aid, most of that was Chapter 70.
So that reflects the increase in state aid?
Not fully. I did, Ian, myself,
Okay,
and the school met.
But basically, that's what that is then?
Yes.
Okay.
Increase in state aid was $250,000. And in conversation with the school department, agreement was reached to split that increase in state aid between the school department and then a town department. And this is where you guys can weigh in, but my feeling is that it's mostly needed in DPW and specifically facilities.
No, I was the one who asked for recalculating or restating a town budget in the fall. And I think it's going to be very valuable to do so, especially when it comes now we can set our tax rate based on actual state revenue instead of projected state revenue.
Anything else, Lynn?
Sorry, let me just scan through real quick. I do have so I do want to call out, I do have a placeholder in here for a couple things, more than placeholders, actually. There had been some discussion about the storm cleanup event and using the operating stabilization fund to fund that. So that's in here. That's Article 5 now.
Is that the whole amount?
Yes.
What was the number?
$37,719.
I did a triple take out that. It just, I don't know, it seemed like it would have been so much more.
Yeah, I mean,
Tree
it
work
was a
out of my
really
house.
small area of town, but yes.
That's big to me.
Just your house.
But Josh, that'll make a big difference in our forestry
Absolutely. That's
line item.
a third of it, right? Yeah, that's,
Yes.
Mark, I agree with that approach from the beginning. Yeah, that's very, very way to go. I'm surprised at the amount. I thought it'd be a lot more.
Yeah, and so the other one here, this is where I want some feedback. One of the bigger unexpected emergencies we had was mold remediation in 2 elementary schools and community house. That was $164,000, and I have at this point made a recommendation in this warrant article to fund that through the operating stabilization fund as well. Obviously, it's a draft, and I'm open to any sort of consideration you want to give to this, including using free cash, but that will mean we need to pull something else off, because what I have here for free cash will come close to exceeding what is potentially available, although I'll know by our next meeting. It should hopefully be certified by the next meeting. So that's for something to consider and or discuss.
Okay. And this would fit the uses permitted under our policy for operating stabilization fund?
That we should discuss. I mean, I believe so, but it's certainly up to you guys, how you feel about it.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm kind of hard pressed, but, because I know we need to do this and spend the money, but I see the operating stabilization fund is unusual expenditures that I characterize it as act of God, and I'm not sure where the mold falls with that. And I'd like to see personally, I'd like to see what we can do with free cash to get this money coming out of free cash. I'm just concerned as we go start borrowing money that, everybody always says when you start attacking the stabilization fund, our bond raters always talk about how we use that money, and I think if we can find a way to take this from free cash rather than from the stabilization fund, and I haven't gone through the numbers, but it might be worthwhile to see what we can do, and maybe there's something else that we're spending free cash on that we can move to some other source.
could Ian or you remind us what the amount of free cash and operational stabilization fund are right now, ballpark?
Yeah, so the estimate for free cash is $2 million. I think it's going to be a little higher than that, but I'll know for certain in a couple weeks. In terms of what our total balance is in operating stabilization, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I see Ian's on the Zoom, but I'm not sure if he has that number readily available either, but it's upwards of $7 million.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess the question, Lynn, is what other things are we proposing to use free cash for in the fall town meeting?
So here's the quick list without going through each article. We have a backhoe for the DPW. The backhoe is $230,000. That may be able to be split amongst the enterprise funds because that work does cover those enterprise funds. So that might be somewhere where we have some wiggle room. The Long Meadow Street Phase 2 tip design, that's $400,000. Wolf Swamp Vestibule, this is to do the actual work from a capital project from 2 years ago. This is $300,000. Pole attachments, this is for the municipal fiber. This is the application and design work for the system, $491,000. MVP grant match, $65,000. $483.57. I can share with you the spreadsheet after, Mark. Legal expenses for the DPW lawsuit, we need another $175,000. Curbside recycling carts, $630,000. ADU bylaw grant match, $18,100. And additional funds are needed for the Long Meadow Street L project easements of $263,000. So what is not on that list is fully funding OPEB. I don't have any bills of prior year yet. We've put out a couple calls to department heads. I don't think there will be any, but that's rare that there wouldn't be. But we don't have any as of now. And so the bulk of the rest of the warrant is that quick list I just gave you here. And then the other thing that I do not have funding for in free cash is the balance that's needed to demo the old DPW. The difference of funding is $773,000. So I don't have that earmarked in here.
Lynn, why is the backhoe free cash and not capital?
Because of the timing right now. We don't have one that's operable. DPW submitted it on the capital plan. I couldn't fit it in at the time. And so we did some moving around of equipment thinking we could limp through the next year, and unfortunately it didn't work out.
My thought process here is that it ought to be capital. And somehow that we can borrow from this to put into capital, but it ought to be the first thing that comes out of capital next year. Excuse me, and when we've done these in the past, equipment like this, it's generally been either 50, 25, 25, or what, from enterprise funds. But it seemed to me that this ought to be a capital project. And the fact that the timing's off, I understand we need to buy something now. But I don't think we should be paying for it out of free cash when we ought to be, personally, we ought to be paying for it out of capital. And so I think that maybe this is an opportunity to, fund it, if you will, but ultimately pay for it to be paid back from free cash, because we put 2% into that free cash bucket. It's a new fiscal year, right? So it seemed to me that 2% of our tax revenue is going into that free cash bucket pretty quickly. Into the capital bucket. I apologize.
Free cash doesn't count as local receipts. So that's not free cash amount is not factoring into our capital budget.
I understand that, but I'm saying, I think that the backhoe ought to be a capital budget expense.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It's purely a matter of timing and the fact that capital budget is $2 million and our needs greatly exceed that. So it's really, we need both pots of money.
Don't we have capital money in fiscal 2025 already?
It's already fully spent. It's already fully accounted for.
So that's the money we already distributed in the spring.
Yeah, and you deferred 2 projects, which is Article 3.
Right.
The security cameras and the fire truck fund.
And you said that there's an option for possibly funding this using enterprise funds?
Partially.
So what would that look like?
I need to figure that out still because of the timing, but that's possible. But I have the full amount in here. So that's when Mark was talking about instead of using the operating stabilization for the mold remediation, this is where I was thinking we might be able to make that up from. But I'll have more information at the next meeting.
Okay.
Well, just as a comment, in general, historically, we spent 50% out of the capital fund for the town, 25% from water stabilization fund, and 25% from the sewer stabilization fund. So if we did that, that $230,000 becomes all of a sudden $115,000 from free cash, with half of that, which is whatever it is, $65,000 from each of the other enterprise funds.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if you
So
do
that
have
frees up $115,000.
you have a third enterprise fund. I don't know what the balance is in that stabilization for stormwater, but the backhoe will absolutely be used for stormwater as well.
And it's a 25, 25, 20, and in which
Right.
case it's 3/4 of 230, which already covers the 164.
Yep.
Here's a question. So you mentioned the Chapter 70 money being split between the schools and the DPW, which is nice, but I was wondering that the $125,000 for the schools, that's not earmarked for anything on their budget at this point, right? Is there any precedent for them finding funds to help like defray the cost of the mold, for example? Because that pretty much would be very close to covering it or contributing to it so that we can have less of a pressure on, burden on free cash or even going into operational stabilization.
We certainly have that conversation with them. There is a issue right now at the high school pool that I have had some initial conversations with them about them paying for. We will likely not have the funding in the DPW budget to repair that. But that's still exploratory right now. But yes, we do have those types of conversations.
Lynn, the only other concern we have is that taking money out of the operating stabilization fund has a higher burden of voting requirement than using free cash. And so that would be my other argument for trying to make this work without using the operating. It could turn into may not be, but it could turn into a debate. I'd rather not have it, over that $164,000 if we can get it out of free cash.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Well, we're talking free cash. A couple of the numbers jumped out at me. That $400,000 for the Phase 2 funding for Route 5. Where would that be? I remember us spending $100,000 every year on these studies a few years ago. So where's this $400,000?
This is the second phase. You'll see in the explanation, I left the exact streets blank, but
This is just moving on to the next section, theoretically? Okay.
it's converse to, I want to say, the end of the green.
Oh, that's a pretty good chunk, okay. Maybe not the chunk that needs it the most, but I get it.
And what work is this?
What do you mean?
I mean, what's this 400,000 paying for?
Engineering and design.
It's the second phase, the second TIP project.
Right, but that TIP project is now 2026 or beyond.
Right.
And I understand us wanting to be shovel-ready, but are we spending this money and squeezing ourselves and gonna sit on this engineering study for a year and a half? Based on what I keep hearing about TIP money and that.
It's another year of design, so I would urge you to fund it to continue that process moving forward. The worst case is that we get pushed back a little bit, but the design is done. We're in the queue, we're gonna get the grant, we do need to finish the design.
I'm not arguing that we need to do the design. I'm wondering if we need to spend the money that can potentially be used for something else and still get the design done in time for when the TIP project comes through.
We're risking not having it done with us being on the TIP.
It's always a risk. You're right, but I've just got to say that from what I'm hearing, and I go to all the MPO meetings, we're gonna have this study done and put aside, and when we wish we'd spent the money on something else.
The current L project, which is going to start within a year, we're still taking easements for, we're still working on. So even knowing we're going to start, it's still a rush to get done. So I just had to urge you to fund it.
I have one question, just for education's sake. Did you mention in this free cash list recycling bins for $630,000?
Yeah.
Next question. We bought those, or we need to buy them?
Not yet. So this is a little bit of cart before the horse here. As you know, we've been out to bid for curbside trash hauling. We have been in negotiations, and a bid award was given to Waste Management. I don't have a contract signed yet, which is why I haven't included it in my town manager report. But we evaluated all proposals, and the least costly proposal that we felt was most advantageous to the town was automated curbside, which includes both trash and recycling. So our current toters are automated, available for automated. They have the bar on the front. We do not have recycling toters that are automated. And so this is funding the purchase of those recycling toters for automation. I will say, we exhaustively looked at this, and the 5-year proposal, including the purchase of these carts, is still much less than what all the other proposals were, and at least the first 2, maybe 3 years are less than what we're currently paying.
So just to sum up, the advantageous bid, even when you add in that we have to buy $600,000+ of extra toters, we come out ahead.
Yes.
I think we should put that in here. I mean, I plugged out my head. Those are, none of our carts are that old, right?
This isn't
Well,
replacing
he's not,
your
yeah,
current.
he's in addition for the
Yes.
recycling.
These will be
part of it.
blue instead of, or green or some.
These are for just
Are these
recycling.
time
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
And I think that these recycling bins are gonna be 3 times larger than the trash bins, so
Yes.
it's gonna be
And
much
it'll
larger.
be mixed, so you put paper
No.
and,
No.
no, they'll be every other week.
Dual
But-
stream.
I see. So my follow-up is, when you look at the very important list of very important priorities that you gave us, if, for example, just for the argument's sake, we said, we don't want to touch operational stabilization, is there anything on this list that you would consider of a lesser priority if we wanted to fund the mold out of free cash, the mold repair, remediation of free cash? Or is everything time sensitive and crucial?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what spring town meeting will look like, but yeah, I was really disappointed with the legal expense one. That was an
Yeah,
unexpected
that's-
one. I expressed my disappointment to the attorneys. Those bills are staggering, so that was not one I
How
was
much is that?
expecting.
Let's say that was the last thing we spent on legal. How much will that all cost us?
About $1 million.
Oh. I'm on the wrong track. That's a lot, and the cat and mouse game we've been playing is really frustrating.
I guess, Lynn, it begs the question, what would have happened if we didn't have the level of free cash we do have? Because we're fortunate to some degree to have free cash to be able to do these projects, but if we didn't have the free cash,
Yeah,
we'd be doing some serious triage here.
yeah, things would deteriorate, for sure.
You know, and one thing, as I asked that question, my answer would be, having been intimately involved in the trash process, in the trash contract, is, you know, it is, and we won't get into the specific numbers because we can't yet, but it is so advantageous for us to go to automated recycling along with automated trash that I would find a way to bond that and pay for it out of the operating budget over time if we needed to. Because that's how much money the town is actually saving by going to fully automated trash collection, both recycling and trash. And I'm not suggesting we do that, but if the free cash hadn't been there for those carts, or isn't there for the carts, it's essential that we do that, because in the long haul, as you know, Lynn, and I'd like to impress on the select board members, it saves the town a lot of money, and we can get into the details of how much that a lot of money is when we've got the contract signed, but it's a lot of money. Obviously, if you can justify $635,000 of bins to go to fully automated, you can imagine how much we're saving the town. So I don't know if that's an option, but.
Are you saying you think we should do that at?
No, I'm not, because we have the
We don't
money,
have to. Yeah, okay.
but if it's bond part of that, perhaps, and pay for that bond out of our trash contract, or ban it, or whatever it is, to get some favorable rates, maybe we need, I mean, there's a lot of options here for funding these things, and like I said, if we didn't have this $2 million free cash value, you know, for the most part, we try to figure out a way to bond all these, to pay for all these items that Lynn identified. And I think we need to find a way to do that.
Yeah.
Just following up on the mold remediation money, where is it going to come from? So one follow-up is, let's say we said, let's put this warrant on here for the operational stabilization fund. It requires 2/3 vote. Let's say it fails. Then where will we get the money to pay for it? Free cash?
No, we wouldn't have it available for us because we've spent it on everything else. We would,
But it's already been done, so we owe the bill, right?
yeah, what's happening is the bulk of it's coming already out of the DPW operating budget. But because it was the start of the fiscal year, there was funds available, but
Yeah.
that's not a great
Right. It's not been
approach.
budgeted for, it's coming out of money that's been earmarked for other things.
Right.
Okay.
So I know you want to keep moving along on this, and what you do not see here in this warrant, and it's why Sean is here tonight, is you have a pavement conversation, which is a potential bonding of a large pavement program. And if you decide to move that forward, that would then turn into a warrant article.
Okay.
But that is not on this tonight.
Okay.
And then the rest of the warrant makes up the bylaws that we've discussed in previous meetings.
Yeah, Josh.
Well, except for the citizen petition, which I think I've heard from a lot of people that are very interested in this and would like it to be moved, to be heard early, to avoid childcare problems or at least limit them. So I would propose that we put the citizen petition at Article 2.
Last year, when we had this discussion with the town moderator about moving articles of public interest up, didn't we talk about kind of like that sweet spot being like Articles 7, 8,
At
9?
annual,
At
yes.
annual,
Because
okay.
at annual, it's after the budget. I'm not married to 2, but there's no logical place otherwise in here. At the annual, yes, I think you have the housekeeping things, then you do the budget, and then you do the capital expenditures, and then you put it in there. But,
Yeah.
if we want to put it 5 is fine to me also. Definitely before we start getting into all the free cash allocations.
Yeah. Sorry.
I guess you're right, because you want people to have time to get in, but I think there's going to be some discussion about center school. So, I forgot about,
Yeah, I think
I say maybe 5.
I think 5. I think that sounds good. I think it is important to have articles of public interest higher to give folks a chance to vote on it. So I'd be in favor of moving the citizen petition up as well. And then I think the other one is if we can move the 2 fiber articles up.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna interject, yeah.
With that, it's important, I think, to have the municipal night plan article before the pole application design engineering.
I did do,
Oh, you
I
flipped
did,
it?
I
Okay.
fixed it.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
because we can't spend money before we even.
Right,
Yeah,
no point in
that's
that
been
article.
fixed, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay.
And the same with the ambulance. We're rescinding the vote on the borrowing for the ambulance, and then we're moving to transfer the money. That's later on. You'll see it in here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so maybe if we do like the citizens petition 5 and then maybe the fire one 6, 7, something like that.
I'll work it that way. You guys can see it the next meeting and decide if you like where it's placed.
Okay, that sounds
I'll
great.
just put a note in there.
I guess the question though beneath is, have we decided if we want to do mold remediation out of the stabilization fund or out of free cash?
Well, I think I was looking to see what Lynn would, she said she was gonna look at the backhoe and how we could possibly fund that and come back with that information at the next meeting, and then we could decide, because it's an open question for me too, but I want
I mean,
kind of more
if
information.
3/4 of the backhoe comes out of stabilization, enterprise funds, that's $170,000. That more than covers it if we do that.
And that'd be great, I personally.
But the question is, do we have the sewer stabilization fund has big dollars in it. The water was the one that was tight.
Right.
And I think the stormwater enterprise fund has a significant amount of money in it because we keep putting money in every year and never take any money out. So it's the water stabilization that has an issue, I think.
Does it have to be evenly split among the
No.
enterprise funds? I mean, maybe that's a way to jimmy it a little bit. I don't know, to me, it does, if putting aside the bond discussion and how that affects our rating, I think it is an emergency because people get sick. We had to get the school started. It had to be done right away. We had to bring in a contractor. So I think if there's no bond consideration, I'd say, yeah, that's an emergency. We had to do it right away. It was something that happened maybe because we had faulty equipment, but it was still Nobody expected it. But I would like to hear more on how it would affect our bond rating, and if we don't have to do it at all, then I think that's probably the best. Because, yeah, that money is, there's always another disaster around the corner, sadly. So if we could avoid it.
Yeah.
But if we have to, I think that there's certainly an argument to be made that it is an emergency.
Yeah, I will double check all that. I do not believe taking $200,000 out of a $7 million stabilization fund is going to have any impact on our bond rating. I would be shocked if it did.
Right, I would agree with you, but again, if we didn't have this money available to us, the first place I'd go is because it meets the precise definition, Andrew, of the fund that the Finance Committee has.
The reserve fund?
The reserve fund. And
Actually.
now they only have $50,000.
20,
but
they have 20.
Okay.
They only have 20 now?
No, they've always only had 20.
Oh, okay, I thought, so it's not a lot, but it's money that, this is the precise definition. After the budget's been completed, there's an emergency that needs to be spent.
Okay.
So we might want to consider all or part of that as well.
Well, yeah, I'll look forward to talking through those options at our next meeting. Anything else on the warrant?
I'm just thinking of the recycling piece again. And I'm just wondering what can we do? Can we, is there a market out there for the old
Cheaper
bins?
toters?
Maybe there's another town.
Oh, no, we're keeping the old bins. We're keeping the old bins.
The blue
We are.
bins.
Yeah,
Well,
it's an
you're gonna-
addition.
You're going to need those bins because if you have
Overflow?
split stream, yeah, if
have
you're filling it
dual
up with paper one week, you're going to have to put your cans in something else, which you need to do now. But yeah,
Dan, well,
Yeah, get creative.
we can talk about it.
You're getting a new business idea?
my bins are destroyed. Like this is it's interesting, but they came destroyed with the house.
We can just put East in front of the Long Meadow and sell them to East Long Meadow.
No, see, that's when I said our bins aren't that old. I was thinking of East Long Meadow because I take out my mom's trash. She's got the bin, but they got small ones. Just saying.
Yeah, there's a market.
All right.
Anyways,
I think
sorry.
more to come on trash recycling. All right. Anything else? If not, we can move forward with our pavement bond discussion. Okay. And then, Lynn, do you want to start this one off?
Oh,
or?
sorry, Benita, I did have one more thing, actually.
Okay,
I'm sorry. On Article 24, I don't remember, somebody asked if the middle school building committee was going to meet, was this you, Lynn? Somebody asked if the middle school,
Oh, the specialized stretch code?
it would meet the specialized stretch code, and the answer was yes.
Andrew, I think.
Oh, Andrew, did. Thank you.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
also heard that same thing from Armand Ray, who said it was literally in the architects. I said, can I quote you on that? He goes, yeah, it's literally in the report they gave me. So that's good to know,
Yeah,
for sure.
because that's how you get all the federal refunds by meeting.
I also read, Andrea Chasen I asked for more information. She gave me a whole bunch of material. And one of the things I read was that historical structures are exempt. And I was wondering if that have you heard of that? And would that also apply to renovation of the community house or the town hall sometime?
Don't know.
I will get some more information on that and see. Because that would change the outlook for those buildings, to be honest. Because there certainly probably would fall
Yeah,
under that.
That would get us to the point where this
specialized
would really only affect
Affect
the
the-
new massive buildings that we do not have many of.
Well, one thing I did, you know how Mark was saying accurately that the stretch code has changed. You know, as years go on, it becomes more requirements, more stringent. I didn't, as I've talked about this issue with people in town, I think you'd all agree, one of the concerns is that, we don't want people who are just doing a typical remodel, which is very common in our community, to have, costs that become too onerous. And I just didn't know if, right now, it's essentially only if you make a remodel or renovation of 4,000 square feet would you fall under this, which is difficult bar to overcome, wouldn't affect many people. But I don't know over the years if, for example, our experience with the stretch code was that they would, for example, drop it down to something of 3,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet over time. And I believe that the community could, if it ever became too onerous, could say, you know what, we changed our mind, we're not going to comply with that anymore. It would be very far, obviously, from most people who just do normal kitchen renovations and stuff, but there are definitely a lot of old homes in Long Meadow. We don't want, remodeling is happening all the time. So I was just thinking maybe of asking or learning more about the history of these things as they basically change as the years go on, with how they become more stringent, essentially.
Yeah,
Anyone have any
I would be pretty
experience on that?
surprised because that also feels against the spirit of what they're trying to do with, the specialized stretch code and the stretch code, where I think they're very thoughtful. It's very thoughtful in not making it financially burdensome for things like minor, for renovations or additions.
Mhm.
I think it is about putting the onus on entities that can't afford
Okay.
to do it. But
That's
yeah,
what it seems now.
worth looking into. But I think I'd be pretty surprised.
Great.
Yeah. Great. Anything else?
Oh, and just a follow along for Josh's recognition that the middle school is included as already planned for the specialized code. It was also, the point was made to me that it doesn't cost us any more because of grants, essentially, which was a very important thing. Yeah, we're not going to pay more for the middle school because of this improved, more energy saving code.
All right. Pavement bonding, Lynn?
Yeah, so if you recall, several meetings ago, you had received a pavement management update, and there was conversation about potentially doing a large bonding so that we could see what it would look like to really try to tackle some of the deferred maintenance on roadways, but also potentially put something out that would make it a more favorable bid so that it could line up a company for several construction years, and putting it out at a time of year when we could potentially get better prices. So Sean worked with the engineering firm that we've been using for this work, and they've provided some possibilities here for you to think about. And so Sean can go through in more detail about what some of this might mean and some of the considerations that have been discussed internally. And then, we're looking for some guidance from you guys, not necessarily tonight, but, if it's something you want to pursue for the fall town meeting, you would need to give us that direction by October 21st so that we could build the warrant article to include. You also don't have to do anything this fall. You can take it under advisement and consider something for the spring. But there is quite a bit of design work that would need to go into this. This is not like we're ready to go out to bid in the next 2 months, right? Close.
Vinnie?
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to get the cost of the design work, certainly. And I don't know whether we do that in-house or we have to fund that separately. My personal opinion is that on a macro scale, interest rates are coming down, and if we wait a little bit, we may be better off as a town. On the other hand, our roads are in pretty tough shape, and we need to get it done. And so there's got to be a balance there somewhere. But I guess the question is, if we could go forward with this immediately, what's the earliest we could do it? And so the question is, wouldn't we wait to bond it if we think interest rates are going down, and they seem to be? Wouldn't we wait to bond it later, accept it in principle, but not do the bonding until we think we've got better interest rates, but be shovel-ready, as they say?
Yeah. Why don't we have Sean walk you through how they got to this list and what design they already have?
It's a little nuanced and complicated, which will cause more questions. So we actually are pretty close to being able to go to bid. It would just be a matter of getting some of the data, putting the bid documents with some nuance and some feedback from you guys that I would need about some of the roads. A lot of this has to do with what's under the roads too, trying to figure out what we're going to do for projects long-term for the water and for sewer as well as stormwater. That's important because we don't want to go and fully rebuild the road if we're going to come back in 5 or 6 years and do a water main project. That's just bad use of funds. Unfortunately, some of these roads, like Shaker, can't wait 5 or 6 years for us to come back in and do the water main. So if we do decide to move forward with these projects, we do need some direction in terms of what the long-term plans are for the water and sewer side as well. So there's more questions that are going to come up as we go through this. But what we did was take a look at some of the larger roads in town that affect the rideability for most of town. Obviously, Shaker's one of them, which is why it's up there. Some of the people in this room have had some issues with their cars driving in Shaker. So We get calls about that road constantly, as well as Long Meadow Street. So you'll see that portion of Long Meadow Street is not associated with the two tip projects we have, and there's no plan in the out years. We think we're going to get grant funding for it. So that number 5, Long Meadow Street, is the other large connector road that hopefully melts into our other 2 projects. Emerson and Cooley, those 2 roads are pretty beat up, mostly driven by our water main projects that have happened. So there should be consideration, if you move forward with those projects, to utilize some of the water enterprise funds to cover the cost of the paving. Grassy gutter needs work, but underneath it has substantial stormwater issues. So we need to kind of get some feedback about our long-term plans for that too, and larger projects that are affecting the stormwater system. Pondside's in really bad shape. Obviously doesn't have a lot of traffic on it from town like the other roads, but it's rough. And I want everyone to keep in mind, when these roads fall apart in the conditions they are, we have to put a tremendous amount of labor into them to put asphalt down the patch, as well as increase amounts of salt. So there's a cost associated with not maintaining the roads. It also beats up our plow equipment and costs us money in repairs to equipment. So that's some of the thought process for why some of these roads appeared here. Bel Air and Twin Hills, these are obviously roads in really rough shape. They appeared on the pavement management plan. So there's more thought that went into it than I can break down in a couple minutes tonight, but this is just a ballpark idea of what we came up with in-house, and going through the pavement management plan, as well as trying not to have projects conflict with other projects we know are coming in the out years and that are going to waste town resources. Go ahead.
This is all be to do work next year?
So, to what Mark was talking about before, it's really advantageous and incredibly important in terms of the cost of these projects to get them out to bid with a low interest rate if you can, along with early on the year before the work is actually to start. So a contractor can come in, give a super low bid, and help fill out portions of their construction season, and you're not going against every other town trying to get those contractors. So the bid timing and interest rates and that sort of bidding environment play a major role in the prices, as well as the price of oil, which people don't really realize when they see a road being paved. But those factors play a huge, they're hugely important in terms of the overall cost. It could drive this project from $8 million to $6 million within just a month's time of bidding and a little bit of change in the price of oil. It's crazy how it works, but it happens.
So, all right.
We can be up to bid in a month and a half, 2 months, if we were to have money right now.
But is the intention for all this to be done next year?
Yes, in 1 year.
Okay. And this is obviously much more than we would normally spend in 1 year.
Yes.
And what kind of, I don't know if Ian wants to talk about this, or Lynn, what kind of bond are we looking at for this?
I'm going to defer to Ian on this because I believe he was working on this today,
There's an email you have
which
with a
I
couple
haven't seen
options.
because I was doing the warrant. So that's, hopefully Ian can answer this. And just while Ian's queuing up, just some context here as a reminder, your Chapter 90 allotment every year is about, or ours is about 480,000, and the capital plan generally is around 700,000 for roads. So combine those two, we can maybe do Emerson.
And before Ian gets started, I want to emphasize, this is just playing catch up through inflationary pressures. The last 5 to 7 years, we've lost the ability to do about half the capacity of our work in terms of where that money's gone. So, just so everyone understands.
So those other funds, though, are separate from what we're talking about?
That annually, we're doing like 1.3, when I don't know what the number is, of paving.
The 1.3.
And we're falling, yeah.
So we could use it on top of that, or would it
Yes.
be?
Or you could say this is next
Or
year's
go for
paving.
something else.
It's up to you guys.
Or it could pay the bond premium.
And, sorry, Sean, so the number 5, Bliss to Wheel Meadow, didn't we just talk about the second tip project covering that?
So the 2 tip projects
area?
get us to Bliss.
Okay.
I thought so it doesn't go to the green, past the green or anything?
It maybe hits a little bit. Some of that area might need, there's nuance in this design. Some areas that are wicked bad might need a little bit of a thin course to hold us through until that construction season starts. So I have to go through the details with engineering, but there's some places there might be a little overlap.
Oh, when you said end of the green, I guess we were all thinking of the other.
You mean the end of the proximal end of the green?
Yeah.
Okay, so this
You're
would take us
saying the north end of
Converse,
the green.
Converse to Bliss, and then this, okay, got it.
That portion of Long Meadow Street is another tip project, but we're probably 15 years away from it. So we need something to carry us forward.
Got it, okay. Before we go to Ian, why don't we go ahead, Ian, and then I'll ask questions.
He's muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. Mike, I did send you an email of the summary that I shared with John. It might be helpful just to show the select board what I'm talking about, so I'm not just randomly setting numbers at everyone.
Yep, I'll pull it up right now. I just have to finagle my screen.
Look how casual Ian looks.
He's somewhere sunnier than you, or maybe that's just the background.
I've never seen him out of a suit.
I know, I'm sorry.
It's all right, just remarking. I'm happy for you.
So basically what I helped Sean with today, just to give you a sense of what we're looking at, is I tried to do a range. So this schedule here will show, and the pavement borrowing summary, Mike, it should be, you scroll down, it's that one, yep.
Yeah, I'm just reconnecting my screen.
Yep, that's fine. Perfect. So with the two draft amounts, I tried to give an idea as to if we were to borrow, say, 50%, 75%, or 100% of the two different estimates, and what that would look like in terms of monthly payment, annual debt service, and estimated tax impact. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Good.
So looking at the first draft, and the numbers, the assumptions here are 15-year borrowing as recommended by the DLS borrowing terms, and a 5.5% interest rate, which is conservative because I didn't want to use a lower interest rate just to see what the worst case scenario would be in terms of highest interest cost. So using the 100%, if you scroll down, Mike, I'm not sure if you can see it on your end, but this would be what the assessment is for different residents at different real estate levels. So at 100%, and if you scroll back up, because this is the second draft, just sticking with the first draft for now. So we're looking at about $80,000 of debt service on a monthly basis, or about $1 million of annual debt service, and that would increase the tax rate by about 32 cents, which would increase the tax rate to about $21 from the $20.68 it's currently at. This would increase the average single-family tax bill about $161, and I kind of show below the change that would be for different real estate values. So a house at $250,000 all the way up to $550,000. And this is at 100%. So what you can see here is if we only borrowed half per se, it would be half the increase for a single family bill. But this is a helpful way to see what the total impact would be if we were to borrow the full amount.
Andrew? So Ian, you don't necessarily have to, maybe for the next meeting you can prepare something, but I think it would be very helpful for us to see how, like a schedule of our current debt obligations with anticipation of two big ones, like if we had the middle school in the fiber, that's 20+ million right there, and what all of these together are gonna do to our annual debt service amount, and what does that look like? Because I mean, on one hand, 8.1 million isn't a big number when you put it next to like all these other things. But if you come to us with a report and saying, okay, the middle school is so much, obviously it's a project we all believe is very important and worth doing, but that's going to put us out of policy for the select board's goal of, keeping annual debt service as a percentage of the budget under control. We should know, because to what extent that might put us out of our ideal policy, because that might influence if or when we would do the bonding for this, or it would influence do we do 50%, 70%, or 100% of the bonding, So maybe you could prepare something showing the debt obligations and the time they come on, come off. I know there will be some projections in there, obviously, but I think that would be helpful for a conversation
I can do that.
at the next meeting. Mark?
Thanks. I guess my concern is the 15 years borrowing for roads. And I heard what you said, that it's somebody's standard, but frankly, I'm not sure we've ever had roads that have gone 15 years without needing some additional work on them, and I'd hate to see us still paying the bond off on roads that long after we've you know, they've done their useful life. And I don't have obviously an alternative is something less than 15 years that raises the cost. On the other hand, I think 5.5% interest rates are very, very conservative, thankfully, because of what we've been and where we've been, and so, you know, that's my only concern. I just don't know. I think we need better numbers. The difference between 9.7 or 9.8 million the first draft and 8.1 million the second draft, and Sean saying if we bid it right, we can get it down a lot more, it is more important to me than the, you know, than the $80,000 a month or $960,000 a year.
If I can add that whatever we get the allotment to bond, obviously we're not going to pull it all down unless we had a project that costs that. It's very difficult to get better numbers than this. They've probably got 10% contingency factored in. But I want to add, if we're saying in the out years, I need some input from you guys that we've had several water main breaks on Shaker. If we're going to do the water main break, or the water line in Shaker, we would do a much smaller, these are full depth repairs. This is complete rebuilds. If we decide we're doing the water main on Shaker in 5 years, we would do a Band-Aid on top of that road to let it ride without wasting too much funds. So that number would come down. Additionally, obviously Emerson Cooley could be utilized the funds from the water department if there is any, water enterprise if there is any left. The typical life expectancy of a road is 20 years. After you do a little bit of maintenance, like cracksing and stuff, you get 25 out of it. Most of our roads we're paving now are like 40 years old, so 15 years I think is reasonable in terms of the construction methodology we're using to have them last that long, to your point. But these numbers they're not going to get a lot better. We have to have contingency built into them. So I don't know that we'll get much better until we open bids.
Yeah. Well, first I just want to say, I think everyone on the board here I've been on for 2.5 years, and even just living in town, I hear from everybody. When I was door knocking all over town, everyone I talked to, not everyone, but a lot of people, said the roads are terrible. And I know firsthand because I've had an incident with my vehicle. But I just feel like we need to listen to the residents, and I feel like we need to deliver on going big for a road repavement. I feel like we've waited way too long. We keep using the same, I think Lynn mentioned like 1.3 or whatever the state's giving us, plus the 400K plus annually from the town. I think we need to go big. Obviously we need to be smart about it, but everywhere you go, if you're on the select board, you hear about roads. And I think that's something that we need to listen to the residents and actually deliver on. So I fully support doing this, but obviously we want to be cost sensitive. The only other question that I really had was for the, if we're looking at the numbers, so to Lynn's point earlier, when you said 1.3, are we talking about we could use that number towards these monthly payments as well, and then further make a reduction which would help homeowners as well?
So when we originally talked about this, one of the scenarios had been using capital, the capital, annual capital contribution to pay the debt service on this. So that was one of the scenarios. That's not what you're seeing on the screen here.
Okay, because I'm looking at it as if we took like 50% of that 1.3, help pay down, we have a reduction on the taxes that individuals or homeowners are paying. It might help offset some of the costs, but is that how I'm understanding it?
So what you're seeing here is if there was an override, a debt excluded override, which is different than what our prior conversations had been. So this is if we went to the voters and said, do you agree to raise your taxes over and above 2.5% to cover roadway improvements? That's that scenario.
I don't think
there.
it would reduce anyone's taxes.
So
it would just be using funds for debt service instead of for actual projects.
Right.
Right.
We would be borrowing a big amount of money to get projects done and using that small amount of money in capital that we had previously been using for road projects. We'd be using it to pay
interest.
Yep, on the big project.
Although it's a way for us to get a lot of work done quicker. I think that, Dan, 100% agree with you. But I had a lot of the same questions along with what Andrew was saying. Because in theory, this is something we'd want to do every year. Let's take a big swing. No? Oh, yes.
It will be 8 million? Yeah.
we can.
Oh, yeah. Please, let's do it.
But because this is a way for us to spend a little bit every year and get a lot of work done, but we can't do it every year. And we're going to, so we still have to be, one of the biggest things in my time on the board, a lot of what our town departments have to do is reactive, because there's been so many years of kicking the can down the road, and now we're stuck with fixing things that should have been addressed much earlier. And this is a great attempt at being proactive, which is what I've really been an advocate for, and I'm glad we're doing it. I just want us to, I would like to see a projection on how, along with what Andrew was saying, how is this going to fit in, and what, based on other roads, how many times are we going to have to do something like this, and how quickly can we get these bonds off of our plate in order to bring on new ones? Because, this would take us, under our normal spending, 8 years to do this work, and in 8 years, 20 other roads have become unusable. So I agree with this approach. I want to see how it's going to all mesh together and with our long-term plans. The most visible things in our town are our schools and our roads, and the money for those often clashes. And so I'm really glad we're taking. We've been talking about this for a while now. I'm glad we're thinking about it, and I want to see how it plays out. But I think that taking a big swing like this is really smart, and this drives people crazy. So I'm glad I hope we can do something about it.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Andrew.
I think another point that I was going to make, which I think we all would agree, to do this in a smart way. As you revise this, I do think that, and I think you're seeking this guidance, I think that if you have a situation where you think the sewers, the water mains underneath that road need to be done in 5 years, then it would behoove us to make a plan that allows us to invest what is necessary to get us to that point, but not put millions of dollars into road and then tear it up again. I think that I would personally encourage you to do that and present that to us.
It would take 10 minutes to alter the it's not a big lift. It's more a matter of whether or not you guys are saying, we plan on addressing the water infrastructure and we need to do this road in 5 years. Because if we're not, then we need to do it correctly. And then we'll fix the Band-Aids on it. And that's fine. That's just a decision that I shouldn't be making in-house. That should be coming from the voters and from you guys.
And so I want to thank Lynn and Sean and Ian for looking into this and bringing this to us, because when we were talking about our annual town meeting warrant back in April, and we were having this discussion about road paving, I said there has to be a better way to do this than the way we're doing it right now, and that I asked you all to come up with some ideas and present some different ways to do this, and I thank you for bringing us options, because hearing things like these roads that we have are 40 years old, right? I mean, that really puts into perspective how our roads have been neglected and how we have not gone about maintaining them or caring for them in a smart, proactive manner. And this is the same story that we had with water mains. And so, Andrew, when you say that we should look at this list and see if there are any water mains that need repair in the next 5 years, that's going to be true basically anywhere around town, right? All of our water mains are basically 80 to 100 years old. And so what I will say is that, I think what Sean, you're asking for is if we are going to possibly use water rates or to pave these roads, that you want a signal from the select board that we are going to be aggressive in replacing water mains. And that would be my preferred approach. My preferred approach would be to use water rates to replace these water mains, and then to use the funds to then pave the roads afterwards. That brings down, the amount that we have to bond. I also think that I like the approach of instead of putting that money, capital money, towards roads every year, to put that towards debt service. I think that also makes sense. Because I do think that we have some big borrowing coming up, and I think at least in these next few years, we can kind of be careful, but also get started on this in a meaningful way. Mark, did you have your hand?
Yeah, I did. What I see here is great, Sean, but I think what I'm looking for, and I thought I heard this in Josh, but maybe not, was really a 5-year plan. In other words, if we do this next year, what are we going to do the second year, third year, and fourth year, and fifth year, and how are we going to pay for it? And is that second through fifth years going to be at that $1.1 million, which is Chapter 90 plus additional capital, or is it going to be reduced because we want to use some of that money for bonding, for paying off this bond? And I think that's the best way for me, at least, to look at what this looks like, because there's not a road here that I disagree with, but I will comment, and you should hear this, and I think others should hear it, that a couple of years ago, Glenbrook Road was a disaster, and I think a bunch of people brought it up to you, and I don't know what was done, but it was clear that they skimmed it. It's the best job they ever did. It's it's in a terrible location, it's shade and sun and all this kind of stuff. Sure. And it's been 2 years, and it's great. And so, I don't think anybody was asking to dig up and replace the water mains, but I at least got a good sense that there are skim coats, and then there are skim coats, and some of them are, a tenth the cost, or a fifth of the cost, and will last almost as long. And there are other times we want to do a full depth, and I think it behooves people to understand that. I wouldn't have thought that would work until I saw what went on at Glenbrook, and I'm sure you've noticed that as well. It's been phenomenal.
Each one of those situations is dependent upon the base and what it's being skimmed on, and the subbase and the traffic. And so every road's a little bit different in terms of it. So we have that pavement management software that was presented, must have been 2 years ago now, almost a year and a half ago now. If you want to know what the out-year costs are, it's really easy based upon what was presented in terms of what a good road maintenance program would be, and the numbers were presented that night. If you do this large sort of fix, we would then input that data in our payment management software, and it would adjust the numbers in the out years to say what we would be able to spend, which would be greatly reduced. But it's far more than the 1.3 million we're getting. And if we continue operating in that amount of money, we're going to keep falling further and further behind. That is not going to, we're going to be in a worse situation because the cost of doing these projects continue to rise. So we're losing ground every year. So if we continue that 1.3, you're going to have a much bigger mess.
So this isn't just 1 year. You're going to come back to us next year or the year after with another.
What I'm going to come back to
chunk.
is a capital program similar to what was presented last year, saying we need $2 million, or we need this, or we have a combination of TIP projects and multiple grants that are making up that number of, let's just say it's a $1.8 million annual to keep up our roads. But if you don't keep up with that set amount of money, there are ramifications. That's just the way it is. If you don't fix the roof in your house, it'll leak. I mean, decisions are, it's hard decisions, but that's the truth.
Yeah. One really piece of this equation that we sort of touched on a little bit is that very soon you're going to get the water capital plan presented to you. And as we've talked about before, fixing the water main, you have to dig up the road, you then repair the road as part of that project. So I think that's a really important piece of this conversation, because otherwise, yeah, I don't see how it's sustainable to do $8 million bonds every single year for roadways. That won't last for long. We won't be able to do that.
But is it sustainable to put $5 million into water repairs every year when, that also includes the water system and the roads? I mean, because water rates will just keep going up then.
Yeah, I mean,
at some point there's a limit on that as well.
Yeah, I guess we all have to ask ourselves that hard question: is what are we okay with living with? What do we want to have happen? Are we okay with 80 and 100-year-old pipes in the ground? Maybe we are. Maybe we are okay with that, or maybe we're okay with that in certain scenarios with a plan in place for the next 3 to 5 years in others. I mean, these are not easy decisions.
I guess my last question, Sean, is how do we get this $8.1 million down to your $6 million level?
So I can go back and I'll adjust some of the numbers on Shaker and stuff, assuming we are going to be doing the water mains. And and see what we can do with tonnage and stuff. There's got to be contingency in these bids and these numbers, though, at
But
least.
isn't there somebody out there who says the time to bid it is the second week in
I
February?
absolutely
or something
believe,
like that?
so I absolutely believe that might happen, and we'll save $1 million if we give it a year. But I have to assume the number's going to be what
No,
we have
no,
estimates.
I'm just thinking about somebody who really knows pavement management, who says bids that go out on February 8th always get the lowest price because of, as opposed to don't bid it on July 8th, because that's everybody's bid.
Well, I like to hope that's me, Mark, but, but
Then tell us the date.
but there's not an exact date. It's very volatile and it's always changing. I mean, it's contingent upon overseas oil markets. It's just not that simple. But I can promise you, as someone that was a contractor for many years, you want to give those contractors a long time, a long leeway to get the bid in, and there's risk involved because there's volatility. But the longer they have the project and the larger the number, the better the price.
Anything else?
So the question is this going to be, are we going to put something like this on the fall town meeting warrant? I mean, isn't that the intent here?
Well, I think
I think it'd be nice to get like a report from Ian about a little bit more about our debt service for the next meeting. That's still being time, right?
Yeah, we can put it on the warrant now. I mean, we haven't said it yet.
Yeah, I mean, but also, I mean, we've just received all this information. I think we can also think about it and
We can
talk
still
at
put
our
it on
next
the
meeting about
at the
whether
next
we
meeting
want
if we
to
wanted
do it.
to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Sean, you're going to make some updates as well?
I'll update numbers. I'll send it in a couple days.
Yeah.
So for our purposes, work-wise, I'll work with Sean and Ian to get a warrant article together based on a lot of the feedback here tonight. It's easier for you guys to say no or make an amendment to it than it is for us to create something that night. So at least you'll have something to look at.
Yeah, and so the 3 roads that you said, upcoming water main projects potentially, were the first 3, right? Shaker, Emerson, Cooley?
We did Emerson Cooley already.
Oh, right.
So the question is whether or not you have the funds in the water enterprise to cover the road that we need to pave now.
Right, okay. So really, we're looking at Shaker and, okay.
So Shaker has not been done yet. That would be 5 to 6 years out at the minimum.
Can I ask one more question, actually? If we use the 1.8 annual budget or whatever it is for debt, 1.3 for debt service, okay, and I understand that that's your paving budget, would that preclude us from like taking care of emergencies that came up or issues? Does that money ever earmarked for like something that had to be done on the road? Would it hamstring you basically for years because all the money's going to debt service?
So yeah, if you don't keep up, this gets us caught up, and then hopefully that 1.3 or more would maintain a road management plan that's
Well, we're kind of talking about maybe using all of that for debt service,
so maybe
then the
you're
money
able
will
to,
be gone.
You might be able to do that for a year, but because you have a big year, we're not paving that year with that normal.
And the reason I ask about this is because it's kind of like Ian's 3 proposals, like do we borrow half of it, 75% or 100% of it? It might, if we're going to use some of that money, some of this money for debt service, it might behoove us to not to borrow 50%, not 100%, right? So that you'll still have something.
And it's really up to you guys.
Yeah.
Well, where did we get the 50%?
Ian gave, right.
Where do you get the other 50%?
Yeah,
Well-
there was only one scenario to be there.
Borrow it all?
We'll bring you back that menu of
Okay.
options, because the other thing is if we go out to bid right now, we don't have capital to use to pay that bond right now. Whenever the bond is called, I'm not sure when the first payment's due, that capital is already committed somewhere else. So let us do some work on the timing of this and give you some ideas.
Yeah, and so the 1.3 that we keep talking about, that's the combination of capital funds that we typically put towards paving plus Chapter 90.
Correct.
Right? But I thought in a previous discussion, someone had said that we cannot use Chapter 90 funds towards debt service.
I will need to verify that.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
That's my understanding too.
Okay, because that's why I was saying, if we're having this discussion, it should be about committing capital funds towards debt service, because I don't think we can do Chapter 90, and Chapter 90 would kind of be that extra.
Do you know what
funding that we
percentage
have.
of the 1.3 is generally Chapter 90?
$480,000.
So maybe that helps us with this discussion about, helps us guide us what we can borrow, what we can't, and how much money we'd have for roads.
Yep.
Even if we did this project for annual changes.
So I think we're really looking at 700-ish thousand.
Yeah, and outside of the capital, we also have debt service built into the budget, completely separate from capital. So what Ian and I will do is run some scenarios to see what we can absorb within that, if anything.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Dan?
Just maybe a crazy thought here, but I would keep looking at Pondside Road. And, you know, I go down to the Meadows pretty often, but I just feel like if that, and that road is terrible, by the way, but I'm just wondering, like, you know, folks will say if the road is so bad, maybe people will slow down. 'Cause there's a lot of pedestrians and bikers, bird watchers. So I'm just wondering, to Mark's point earlier, Glenbrook Lane, you know, which cuts through over to Inverness from Merriweather. I'm just wondering, and I'm not a pavement expert, but if we could look at Pondside and maybe focus on patching and skim coating or whatever you want to call it, and maybe then focus on a road that is used more heavily, you know,
that's a great idea.
for cars. I'm just thinking of Pondside and what it is in the
Pondside
Meadows.
used to get a lot of trucks, Dan, remember when the DPW's down there?
They still do. My guys are hiding down there all the time, sorry.
But I think, Dan, what you're saying is like the greatest good for the greatest number of people or roads in this way. Yeah.
I twisted my ankle once running down there.
Definitely, it needs to be fixed, but I'm just saying.
That's a great example. So
if you're going to do a halfway job anywhere, that's the place to do it.
yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. Yep.
Great. Well, I think in terms of next steps, we've kind of talked about what we want to discuss at our next meeting, right? Okay, great. So thank you, Sean,
Thank
for
you,
joining
guys.
us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ian. All right. Now we are moving on to street closure applications.
I'll move that we approve the street closure application for, I lost it, Duxbury Lane for October 13th, 2024.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great.
I'll move that we approve the street closure application for Long Meadow Street east of the Green for October 26th, 2024.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great. And now one-day liquor license application.
I'll move we approve the LACCF one-day liquor license applications for events at the Adult Center, November 7th, 2024, and November 21st, 2024.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? And moving on to correspondence. Does anybody have any comments about any correspondence? All right.
Oh, yeah, I just had one. I was pleased to see the approval of the pollinator garden. And Mike, that was well done. I'm looking forward to seeing what they put up there.
Yeah,
well done.
I agree. Thank you, Mike.
That was Corinne who drafted that too. And just
You're very humble. Yeah, thank you, Corinne.
Thank you,
Thank you, Corinne.
All right. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor? All right. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.